welcome to Hull University and to our Counterpoints exhibition. We're really excited today to have, I'm really excited. So Rob was my lecturer, head of fine art when I was at the university, and really looking forward to hearing Rob's talk on the cross-sections of arts and arts organisations that help build a really exciting arts culture in Hull at that time. I'm not going to say anymore, because Rob's got plenty to say, but thank you all for coming, and welcome.
Thank you for that. It's nice to see some old friends and new people. It's good. I finished at High School Art and Design in 2004, but then carried on until 2007 doing various projects. I started to do art lab, which I come to, and then got the job of head of art, director of art, Dartington College of Arts, which then merged with Falmouth. In fact, I went by Falmouth and moved to Falmouth. And then the various things repeated themselves and closed moving on again, partly through the trade union activities. So then I fired London for personal reasons and then now in Sheffield. So that's the kind of background really. So I was back here for 2017 with ReRooted and also for commemorating Paul Burwell on Beverley Road. So anyway, that's a bit of background. So I'll now move on to this intersecting. Well, by coincidence, this is of Heart. This is the programme of Heart Festival 2002, and I noticed due to the alphabet, I'm next to Paul. And I thought that was quite a nice thing to put on. So, a lot of the stuff I'm showing you is partly historical order, but there's a lot of other things that are meandering around, so it's not really as linear as it appears. So we'll see. Anyway, intersecting. You can say that intersecting is a metaphor, but also because I've made reference to a confluence in an article station. It is quite coincidental that it was published the same week as doing this talk, and they do interrelate. So this is focused on Hull, whereas my article is focused on England in particular. So confluence. So yeah, metaphor, confluence of things coming together, of a flow, juncture. There's certain points, well, it's very like a junction, certain points of shift and change where circumstances have caused something or other, whether it's political, local, etc. Intertextuality, which I'll make reference to in a bit, of where, in a way, you could say that everything's plagiarism. You know, it's if we've learned something, it's from someone else. There isn't originality in the sense of it's coming. Originality comes when you put things together. And I think it's recognising that's important. The constellation of where things are, but they come together to shape. And I think this is like some aspects of the metaphors with Paul's talk of you've got the things that come together, but there are things that are separate at the same time. It's all sorts of things like that. But to put it in more philosophical terms, of which reality is a flux, an endless becoming that is beyond words and language. All language is metaphor. So it's Nietzsche, Julie Christine, anyway, useful to us, but ultimately detached from reality. Then juncture in dictionaries stresses the significant concurrence or convergence of events. So it's come together apart. And intertextuality, a mosaic of quotations. Any text is the absorption and transformation of another. And then the concept of art is located in historically changing constellation of elements. It refuses definition. Its essence cannot be deduced from its origin, as if the first work were a foundation on which everything that followed were constructed and capable of shaping. And so, I mean, since leaving Hull and taking on the role at Dartington, and also finding myself having to supervise PhD students without having one myself, and getting training at Plymouth University, then I've kind of upped my writing and thinking due to necessity, which has been quite valuable, but I have questions over at the same time. But anyway, that's why things might be slightly different from even my own before. And also to mention the sessions, and I got quite into the philosopher Jacques Rancière, of where essentially he's talking about aesthetics as being the realm of the sensible, that is, of what the senses are experiencing, and how one deals with what that is, rather than notions of beauty or ugliness, though they come into it. And I think that's a quite a critical thing. He also talks about the distribution of the sensible, that is, of where the culture, arts, other things, of what we're looking at, what we're listening to, even what we're smelling, where they're coming from, what they mean, and it's a politics. So whenever, and it's an undervalued area, you know, everything seems to revert to language, but the thing of important arts to do with the politics and aesthetics is a crucial aspect of art, the sort of art that I'm interested in. And then from my article, this was the last passage. This was looking to the situation that we're in now, but it was also kind of evidenced from what was happening in Hull and elsewhere, actually, but obviously my experience was here. And things were already happening. And here was one of the people for this experimental art. I think this is 30p. Experimental art is 30p.
Didn't sound
something that I'm kind of working on at the moment is for a performance research journal, but I just put an application to do a paper for it. But John Cage in 1955 defined experimental. This is essentially experimental music, but it doesn't have to be, it could be anything. Included a small phrase that says, an act, the outcome of which is unknown, which I think is quite an interesting one. But quite a lot of them, the outcome is known, and it's still experimental. I think in 2000, the Root Festival, the Platinum guys put this together. They called it Art Access. This basically seeing stuff that's temporal and what it connects with. So it connects with entertainment, music, and drama, whereas that's static connects to illustration, craft, and so on. So there's a kind of, and I saw that as a kind of a difference there. I've been reappraising this, and I'm critical of my own pedagogy. Because a sculpture takes time to draw, and a book takes time to print, and a painting to look or to gaze. So that's a positive thing about those things. from temporality. But then the contents is a video can be looped or made as a GIF, and it can be exhibited in a white cube gallery to be viewed online and needs little attention. So that access is now flawed because of these conditions that have shifted. And then refer back to Albert Camus, who's book Rebel, and where I'm going to paraphrase the section, because there's this idea of these splits, and he's politicised it between bourgeois decoration, on the one hand, forms of bourgeois decoration, on the other, socialist propaganda. And when you think of, you start looking at what those mean in the book, it still makes a lot of sense to me. That's probably most of the philosophy out of the way. And this perhaps an experimental art festival. This coincided around about the same time as Alchemy. I think is this 83? 84, I think. It was 84, I know. So this was other music, some open performance group, and it brought in lots of different things. So there's this stuff was going on already before I came to Hallam. I think there's also similar things happening in other places, but not quite as much as not as radical as some of the stuff that was going on here, which I thought was quite exciting. And I don't know if you can see this, but it just gives it names and so on. And then there's a Postgate gallery back then. So other musics and a performance group. Interestingly, Jane Beach cropped up recently in an article. Rob Gawthrop, who was originally editor of Performance magazine, and he was also a director or curator of Arts Catalyst, and did quite a lot of things. But he recently interviewed, now I've forgotten the person's name, but I met him a few times in Cornwall, as the oldest performance artist in the world. He's still doing stuff in his mid-90s. And Jane Beach was one of the people that we've worked with. And I bumped into her in Falmouth when at the last year at Dartington, there was a festival in Falmouth, and she was performing then. She was also the partner of Bill Beach, who was the head of school when I started. So it's little kind of historical things. And before I came here, Bill Beach had brought this is criss-crossed to Hallam for a lecture. And I think that when you think back, criss-crossed is sort of one of the most important performance people in the world, and the conceptualist and the radical work he did, and he came to Hallam. And so I think that there's already something similar here. Tony Hill is teaching film, and it was his job that I took on when he left. Funny enough, he was in Cornwall. Still in contact with him. But also other musics and Paul's group put on Programming, which I've thrown out there, and I don't know if anyone apart from Dave, anyone here that went to that. Probably not, but it was an extraordinary time. I already knew Paul very well from way back. He was a student in environmental media at the Royal College of Art, and I was a film student. And I used to go across to environmental media because they had a synthesizer. And the film school were interested in art, and that's what I was interested in. So anyway, I knew him from then, probably from before then. And but anyway, the Rob Gawthrop shows was a great performance because it was Anne Bean and Richard Wilson, and they have these helmets which spell bow, and then they set light to it, and there's fire that goes everywhere. And all earlier in the performance, they had sirens and bells and sort of things, and welding gear and bangles and that kind of stuff. And the finale was they like the helmets to stand there with bow in flames. And of course the smoke detectors went off, and the alarms of the phones down. And I remember Paul and Kit together, so they started setting up all their sirens alarms. At that moment, the fire brigade came through the front door, which was a terrific ending to it. So, and I think that may have been one of the later pieces that did indoors. I don't think anything indoors. But it was Paul did contacted me at the art school to say that he's persuaded the Arts Council to do as performance artists in residence, performance art education. And I'd be interested in hosting him in collaboration with Holmes Arts, which had only been going for a short while, because it came about from other music's performance group and the demise of the film workshop. Community artworks, which was also due to the ceasing of funding of being done. So it's just people got together. But anyway, Paul, we got a bit of money from literature and also arts. The college hosted it and had a bit of money. So it collaborated, these two things go together. And Paul did these workshops, which included teaching students how to make detonators. and there was detonating bags of chickpeas and sacks of flour in the little walkway by the college. So anyway, we did this event called Drums Along the Hallam, which had a huge audience. It would never ever happen. It would have been a health and safety nightmare. It wasn't a health and safety nightmare because we didn't really care too much, which is a terrible thing to admit to. But anyway, it was largely successful. To give you, he was detonating oil drums that had burning petrol in the top. So there's some things that were quite on the edge. And that enabled the Interdisciplinarity Arts to release their money, which was to pay someone to work with. By coincidence, about a year before, Mike Stubbs got a film and video residency at the college, funded by the Arts Council, which was the film and video program. And he got involved in Holmes Arts when he didn't have much money, but he got the job. Initially, we had some space upstairs across the building. But after the Prospect Gallery closed, and it upstairs became a photography workshop, so there was a photography workshop. We secured an office space in this building here, which the solicitors downstairs, the Royal Maritime Union upstairs, which the Labour Party office was upstairs, and I think they vacated and found better places, and we were rented from there was the senior team back then, rented from them, very good landlords. So of course, for having an office space, then enabled things to be organised, someone being paid, and you had a wide membership to get on with things. So that was going on. At the college, students, in collaboration with all sorts of people started to do these events weeks. And the events weeks was something that I think Coventry School of Art was the first place that did events week. But there was quite a few took place in Maidstone, Sheffield, and so on, and all around about the same time. And I think that these were really, really important things because there were various schemes which you get hold of money. There was a performance promoter scheme, there was a film video makers on tour scheme, there was visiting lecturing money, then there was the local money from British Council and there was, yes, so students were able to then develop using all these sources to bring people in. And then, which also enabled students from all sorts of other colleges to come to other things. So they would show work, they would see other people, and there was a communal sharing of all sorts of things going on, and they were doing it themselves. So I think this was a very crucial thing, not just here, but Nottingham was another one. And so this happened quite. Most years there was one different group of students doing it, collaborating with different people, often using all sorts of different venues. As you can see, listed venues here. So people would be persuaded to do things, and I think it was that. But all that sort of thing was really good. Now, when I moved to Hull, I moved from Brighton, which is slightly different. And what was really fantastic here was that people didn't say no to things, whereas in the South East people tend to say no to things. And but at the same time, people didn't exactly do much either. And
that's my kind of thing.
And that kind of confluence of not saying no and not doing much was absolutely fantastic. And what could be better, really? So you could do stuff, basically, and people did. And when people discovered they could do stuff, and you could kind of live fairly cheaply, there's really a lot of reason to move away from that if you're going to be an artist. Because if you're going to move to the South East and make a career in London, it's a financial risk. Yeah, and some really did. Anyway, I'm going to go back to Cultural Stars. This was a collaboration. The Trophies of Empire was. This came from an initial proposal by the artist Keith Piper, and the curator at the Blue Coat Gallery in Liverpool developed the idea, partly with him, and then along with the Alchemy Gallery in Liverpool, Cultural Stars in Hull, who collaborated with Ferns Art Gallery and the Royal Forest House Museum, and in Liverpool also Moviola, which become positive, which become fact, and also the University of Maritime Museum collaborated on producing this travel exhibition of Empire. The Hull version was this. Now, of course, this should now be really recognised as a really important show because it spanned these cities, and it was very much about black artists, black identity, and the politics of it. And I think that's a very significant show, I think. And this was 1992. And of course, it's these last few years, the big galleries and so on capitalised upon the issues. We've then neglected these issues right the way along. You know, it took things like this and other organisations, Wolverhampton in particular, I think, was very important. So I don't know other things here. Humberside County Council was we were in Humberside County Council then, and there was significant funding from Humberside County Council for the arts. And it's interesting, it's the coat of arms says United We Flourish. But some people weren't really happy with that. Humberside. And there was a kind of a Yorkshire and also a Lincolnshire chauvinism, which there was an event kind of that we're living through at the moment that I think has a certain kind of chauvinism called got exit in the title anyway, or something like that, Brexit. And I think that the consequences of what seems like, oh, we want to do it our way, we're free now, we can do stuff, we've got our identity back and so on, failing to recognise that there are other things. You can't just do that. And so it was with Humberside. Humberside was split into four. The finances were split into four. In Hull had probably 80% of the cultural funding of Humberside. So as soon as that funding was split, it was a catastrophic cut, which the City Council, the Hospital Council couldn't kind of accommodate. And there's quite a few organisations, theatre, dance, jazz, that had been funded by Humberside, could no longer be funded. And it showed that they either merged or disappeared. And which was a great loss. And it was also very hard to get funding from local authority. Hull City Council at that time knew what was best for the people of Hull, and therefore they would do it. They didn't really want other people coming in trying to do something else or something different. And that was it was a kind of old, as a socialist myself, it's hard to say, but it was an old school patrician, paternalistic council that was woefully lacking in imagination. Harry Parr, who was from students and culturalist arts, various other things, was also instrumental in getting the events of Year of the Artist in 2000 in Port River. But anyway, he walked backwards over the Humber Bridge, which got widespread publicity. And he had these mirrors so you could see him as well. And that got good publicity. So talking of funding, I think it's worth making a list at the time. So the Arts Council of Great Britain up to 1994. After 1994 it was the Arts Council of England. So Scotland and Wales got taken away. The National Lottery started by John Major's government and implemented in 1994. And so the funds were distributed into various organisations, including the Arts Council and the British Institute. Initially for extras. So you had the core funding, but then National Lottery, which was to do something outside of that, was National Lottery. It's possible to use. The British Film Institute funded Hull Screen, which then was called Hull Film Theatre, one of the network of regional film theatres. It had funded film video workshop, which was Northumberland Avenue, ultimately the artworks, and it stopped funding that. Film video workshops were started by Channel 4, after Channel 4 started. They reached an agreement with the association, the cinematographers union reached agreement with them to establish workshops to facilitate local and community and independent film making. Then literature and homicide arts was the regional funder. It was autonomous, it wasn't part of the Arts Council, though it was funded by the Arts Council and other sources of funding. That continued until 1990, when there was a reorganisation and we became part of Yorkshire Arts instead of Homicide Arts. Homicide County Council said that ended in funding ended in 1996. And Hallam Council took on funding in 1996 and we didn't do much with it. Yorkshire Ford, Regional Development Agency, set up by the Blair government to basically distribute EU funding for regeneration and other purposes, and certain amounts of money were accessible from Yorkshire Ford. So that was just the kind of source of state funding. And the interesting thing with Yorkshire Arts was there's a point where Yorkshire Arts was a thing in itself. There was a thing when it was the Arts Council. And although it was implemented after the Manchester government finished, and it was done to save money, it was actually ironically quite effective because it wasn't another layer, you went directly, and there were people there you went directly to, you could discuss what you wanted to do. So it funded organisations, individuals, schemes, and I think that was quite a good period for getting funding. As well, it's Yorkshire Arts as part of the Arts Council. So I think that's funding sources then. When it was at when it was at Homicide County Council, the arts officer there, I persuaded him to assist in this idea of collaboration with the College of Interdisciplinarity Arts, of putting on film programmes on film theatre. And I did various seasons. So I was particularly pleased with this leaflet. It was the print industry used to do most of the publicity. And they were very adaptable for crazy ideas. So it's a two-part season called The Avant-Garde Revolution. And when the first season had finished, we made a leaflet that had the first season as the cover, but it had ripped them. Each one was ripped on the front page. And also kind of, how I got away with it, got the print industry to amend the Polytechnic's logo. And the logo was actually of a relay race of passing on the battle. Only we have the woman hitting the man on the head with the battle. And no one said anything. No one noticed. So it's quite good. Right, slight divergence now. The degree shows, since we're at Wonder College collaborations, I'm just saying, it's a bit out of my article. I'm just going to read it out. Degree shows continue, despite all the things that happens with education, there's still degree shows. And degree shows nevertheless continue to be the final assessment for final undergraduate courses. These used to be largely student-run and relatively localised. Marketing departments have become increasingly involved, and degree shows tend to adopt the white cube model of exhibition. And I'll quote from the white cube from, I forgot to put credit. Unshadowed, white, clean, artificial, the space is devoted to the technology of aesthetics. So, but then, this, unfortunately, I don't know, can't remember her name, but this was in 1998, And this was the degree shows basically the documentation of this. This was made public, and transport was provided to his farm. Always use useful. For students trying to do something like this now, you take an enormous amount of organising and energy dealing with regulations, it'd be really, really hard. Then, it was she just did it. Got in contact with the farm, persuaded them, worked out what it was that she wanted them to do. I think we did, yeah. And we all trooped out there to this farm and watched it.
Well, was that Lisa Barton?
Pardon?
I think was that Lisa Barton's work? Lisa Barton.
Yes.
Remind me afterwards. Do you know anything about her since?
I just spoke to her last weekend for the first time in 30 years. Well, 27 years. Yeah,
Wow.
so I've taken a picture of it and I'll show you it.
Fantastic. That is so good. Yeah. And then she was it. I can't remember. Was she in sculpture?
She was in sculpture,
I thought so.
but she also did performance art.
Hmm?
She also did performance art. She was in the sculpture department, but that was the good thing about there was this kind of, it was quite easy to move between departments at that time.
No, that's an interesting point with the different departments. I mean, when I was a student, I got basically chucked out of the sculpture department because I wouldn't like sculpture. I was doing performances and making films. But at the same time, the audiovisual department got set up. It was David Hall, Tony Cindy. Anyone who knows about video art will have heard of David Hall. He was thought of as the key person for video art in this country. There's also a college that had some of the first portable video. And I thought every art college would be having stuff like that, people doing so. I discovered that wasn't really the case. But Hull did have the means of not having to stay in one department. Although there are still full-time disciplines, you can move around and do different things. Not without problems. There were some, I think, you could see the heavy metal boys, the hairy art sculptors, the public and picnic people, the hardcore disciplinarians. It was quite tricky in the first few years of coming to Hull. Though the course leader and the head department weren't quite like that. Though they had their own kind of problems. Anyway, I survived my 6 months contracts and got a job, so amazing that. Yes. Yeah, and then going to Falmouth, discovering some things haven't changed even from back then. And we didn't even understand. They thought interdisciplinarity was something that might work with painting and sculpture. At Dartington, interdisciplinarity was people working across theatre, music and arts. and the most radical department in Dartington was writing, and the most extreme performances I've experienced by students took place there, by writing students. Shows you. But also, we talk about this, the whole International Sculpture Symposium took place. And I think this was the second one. The first one had, I still remember the poster, it was a fantastic poster of the bus station. It was just as a bus in the bus station. And it had absolutely nothing to do with anything. It was just beautiful. I was a bit more literate at the time, but it's always stayed in my mind of how good that sculpture poster was. It's a picture of the whole corporation bus. Excellent. I copied the idea in Falmouth when I was doing a school of noises in the pub. And one of them I publicised with an archived picture of an old bus at Falmouth bus station. So I mixed that idea. I think it's such a good one. But also we've got buses. But yeah, so Sculpture Symposium brought people, and Chester was instrumental in that, but again, it connected to other things. And so Mike Stubbs, he started, along with the whole dance agency, which survived for a certain point, the Live Arts Space at the Fairies, which is opened, which resulted in the possibility of closing, which was super music. This is great, they have a Live Arts Space, lecture space and so on, and then what do? They close their local gallery that gave access to artists in the region. Closed that, and then that access to wasn't there anymore. And it took, I suppose, artists and Kingston art group to kind of take on that role. Yeah. And interesting enough, this was 1998, and the Arts Council had initiated a build-up to the millennium. Do you remember the millennium? There was that dome thing. That was a great success. Almost as good as the, what was it, the Brexit event, wasn't it? Fantastic. Do you remember that? Didn't the person that do that do Hull 17? That's terrific. Anyway, the year of, some of these were really good, and the year of photography was particularly good. And the Holsbury Arts Festival, Root Festival, is called Lucid, and that had a very wide range of things. Interesting, the picture on the catalogue of actually Mike Stubbs' dad, who's a scientist. But I'll show you this also because of all the logos and all the it's the pre-product company. But, you know, there's different artists that are involved and organisations. I see it as the International Symposium at Trolley Arts, which travel from country to country. They have a Cafe Society, it's a local organisation, a photography organisation, that came out of the photography workshop and the documentary course at the college. Can't remember what that is. All of those. V2 is still going strong in Rotterdam. Steve Mann is an artist in Canada, and there was a live streamed event in 1998 that worked. That's all nice. Steve Mann, I believe, that was performing in Canada, that we're watching here, and he did a piece where he'd go into some corporate office in one country, and he has a camera. Oh no, he has a camera. It's actually a fake camera, he has a camera. And he goes into negotiations about, so he says, look, you can't film it. And he goes to negotiate, well, can I see your manager? And then it goes to, I think the piece called My Manager. And it went on until he couldn't get any further. And the last one said, look, only criminals objected to. I mean, it was to do with surveillance. Only criminals object to being photographed. So, I mean, when you went on me photographing you, it was never. But this is live stream. That was what was so amazing about it. We were watching that, and it's still. We still have trouble sometimes with live streaming. It's still crash even now. Yeah, so the vote goes, you see, Falmouth 98, Arts Council, National Lottery, can't read it, Military Institute, Visiting Arts, University. So they've actually kind of bringing lots of different bodies that would enable quite a big event with a lot of notable people coming. But more importantly, a lot of people from Hallam, working in Hallam, the artists working in Hallam were part of it, without separation from the big man. And I think that is another crucial thing about this connectivity. And it was one thing was you could have a local organisation and say this is ours and so on, and it doesn't go outside of itself. Or you can have big names come in and go off and like a parachuting and go. It's when you bring those things together, something happens. Something more happens in the world, which is that. And also in '98, I think it was Arts Transparent, which was organised by Newlyn Moore. And the whole time Stance was involved with granular synthesis, but the college, we got involved with Lawrence Wiener. And it's an interesting story of this. So these plates were basically made in college for Lawrence Wiener. And Lawrence Wiener gave a talk to the George Street Lecture Centre, and then invited everyone to the pub. And he made a big impact on me. Because
I think he made a big impact on everybody. I think it made a big impact on everybody.
Yeah.
And I think one of the strange things about that was that the normally surly technicians of the sculpture department got really enlivened by this kind of work, like the technical difficulties of doing it, but I think also the idea of it. So when he gave that talk, well, producing the work and then giving that talk seemed to have a hugely energising effect at the time, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, because at the lecture, there's two statements which I don't necessarily agree with, but they're really interesting statements. One was that all art was made out of anger. And I think in the political situations that we've been in recent years, we have the anger, I'm not sure about the art. And the other one he said, art questions answers. Which I think is
Could you repeat that one, please?
art questions answers. Now, another story about this one is at the end of the Art Transparent, he offered it to the city for, I can't remember how much, he was so pleased with it. Council refused. So it got taken off, and it is now in the river near Bury. The Bury Museum Gallery in Bury took it on. And it's kind of reconfigured. They reconfigured it with that tool and went to Bury, which is quite a nice thing because it's quite good. If it's going to go somewhere, why not Bury? And Bury, of course, you see, what's connected to it is that Bury used to run this. It's called Text Fest, which was a festival of text postcards, which was a fantastic little event. And not little, I mean, the scope of the work was immense. Performances, poems, paintings, it was just terrific. And I think it connected to that text fest. And the other bit of this was he also produced beer nets. I've got two of them. And these beer nets, which said Hull Horizon, to Lonsdale, and they were put into pubs, all the pubs that are along the River Hull, up to the Humber. And these bayonets are put in all these pubs, legitimately, which connected that to this. And of course, this is on the River Hallam, so the water rises, and so sometimes it's covered. And you can't read it unless you're on the boat, which of course you're not going to be. So there's a whole lot of stuff attached to a piece that seems almost not there. Another one of arts transplant, this one was this Pedagogy. And I remember being at a meeting when it was being proposed, of trying to work out how to do this. And there was various people, and there was an engineer from Algomech, and she was just amazing, because she worked out, so it was done with Algomech, to build this in the street. This was meant to last the duration of arts transplant, which is a couple of months, last a week. And this is only after a few days. Underestimating the power of the hammer. There was some, it got into the newspapers because how we did it, I don't know, but some wag decided to put a toilet on top and an inflatable doll on top of the toilet. On top of that. They must to do that, because this is huge. This wasn't like this. Anyway, these are anecdotes which aren't really part of the collective, but I think it gives a flavour of something. I think 98 was a lot of stuff in 98. But, so I think which is the right moment to look at the, and this might, I've probably left some out from this list, but this list shows you all the organisations that are going on around time, and since actually, some things came after. Some things have gone, but I think it's certainly, I think that, so I'd say that's probably, I know that was largely true. You may have left something out up to when I left. And what I forgot to put in, of course, was the Delphi Club. And of course, the Delphi Club has got the Bill Drummond piece in it, which was a roadside, I think, which connects a little bit with a homicide defensive stuff. But Bill Drummond came a number of times to Hull. People don't, I'm sure you know Bill Drummond, he's Algomech. Also, a group of us did a soundtrack to Birmingham in College, in fairness, which it made the noise by Millett's house relatively quiet. I've still got tinnitus. It was, I'm not sure whether it was good or not. Anyway, so these things, connectivity. Then there was a young woman at Hull University, I can't remember what she was studying, but she was obsessed with short film. He set up the Hallam Institute for Short Film Festival, and wrote in all sorts of people to try and help out. And it eventually became an organisation called Hull Film, and which also then enabled another body to collaborate with, and because it was film, I did some programming of experimental stuff for it. And the one I was most pleased with, the also was Hull Art Lab films. We managed to get Anthony McCall. Anthony McCall is going to have a massive show at Tailings, but we managed to get him over from New York for the Short Film Festival to present during the night long film before projectors. So it's a 6-hour film that we put on starting at 11 o'clock at night. And we thought it was rather a nice idea to put on a long film for a short film festival. And he came over and stayed and supervised the projection, which is quite difficult piece to That's a bit of a highlight. It's the river. This was the publication that Paul Burwell and Harry Palmer produced for the Year of the Artist 2000. And so it's basically a lot of events along the River Hallam. In developing that, Paul Burwell came up from Bath. It wasn't by coincidence it was called the Bay Galloway, it lived in Bath. Anyway, he came up to Hull to do a recce of the Hallam and come up with the Hallam, got to the top end, and there was these buildings and there were some people around. So we inquired what was going on. We started putting it up for sale. This was the Kingston Rowing Club, which was used. The Kingston Rowing Club was Hull University's rowing club. These universities seem to do rowing for some reason. They have some race in the Thames, and so he inquired and found out that it was £5,000. So the Year of the Artist money aspect of so-called teaching that I would cross. I also showed a video by, I've forgotten his name. It's a gay playwright, and he made this piece called Pedagogy, of where he's talking, it's Stephen Cameron, and he's talking about the importance of teaching and how we teach. And he has this suitcase of these various things, but they're all kind of different sorts of symbols from gay men. And so it's a whole lot of things. So he's talking properly about teaching, but all the items there are connected to post-AIDS gay culture. And I don't think they quite got that right. So it's not surprising I didn't last that long. Got me through my training activity. Anyway, I can show you. I'll show you an opening bit of this. This was. When did I do this? 1984. See, I was appointed to teach film, and it was the film photography section of college, and so I wanted to try and attract other sorts of students. But this actually got shown at the Whitechapel as part of the thing to do with Hull Post that was done from the Helen Kaplinsky, who's at the Florence. She organised this at Whitechapel. And I thought actually the Mike's House that showed it. I think it was lost, so it was. I think that's And the idea of you're supposed to know what you've done before you do it. But certainly, you see it now, also, this attitude of where you've got to say what you're going to do, even though you're going to say it, and then you've got to say what you said. And it's complete rubbish, absolute rubbish. So, I think that this, and also the fact that each module is supposed to be discrete, is also kind of, this is a continuum. You know, it's, it doesn't work. But everywhere, there is no one has escaped it. And it is problematic. But but within that, of course, one has to adapt and change and try and make things work. And one of the things that has come out of it, I think, is something I wrote about in our article, sort of forms research. I'm not going to read anything out now, so it's a bit tedious. Politics, practice, pedagogy, art. But the main thesis was how do you reconcile the, go off and do it, and then we'll have a chat and then come back having done it, with the things that you need to know about to understand what it is that you've done. Right? So how do you reconcile these two almost exclusive things? And I think it's something like this is at the board. That had a possibility of interdisciplinarity and trying to do other things. It's all gone. But what we have got now is that area of doing critical thinking of aesthetics in the sense that I was talking about earlier, and broader context of what you're dealing with. So as you actually have some kind of level of connection of circumstance of what this work is that you're doing. How is this being experienced and what does it do? So those are the things that I think are probably lacking in the old model. But what was good in the old model is lacking in the new model. So how that's to continue in the future, given that a whole lot's being dismantled at the moment, it could well be that what comes out of it in the longer term, we might try and put some sense again in about 10 years' time. So, I'm sure people up here are fully aware that students weren't happy and no one was stuck. And so the college got boycotted and the breakdown, still the bar was set up. So I used to go in there and chat to students rather than chatting on talking about chatting, when it became University of Lincoln, and we were trying to save the course. I was vice chair of the lecture and we were at a meeting in Lincoln, and it was really management. And I was talking about teaching. Fine art and so on. And this guy says, the days of wandering around students, chatting to students is over. Well, I had a similar experience at Falmouth. Similar thing. I missed when I was chair of the lecture. This is when they were trying to close the contemporary crafts course. Now, Falmouth University had probably the best contemporary craft course I've ever come across. And it was inextricably linked with various craft things in Cornwall, which, Cornwall being Cornwall is tourism and things like that. So there's a market and sort of thing. But there's some great stuff, really innovative stuff. A lot of it, verged on, a lot of it was art actually, about others with absolute usage stuff. But it was terrific. We had to close it because they had this manned accounting system, which meant that every course had to cost the same. And as you can imagine, if you're doing contemporary crafts, which might stretch from jewellery to ceramics to textiles, you need quite a lot of gear and quite a lot of technical expertise to do that, which costs a bit. But that would be cross-subsidy. So, anyway, we had this meeting, and there were students protesting outside the window. I've never been here before. And at one point, I said to the Vice Chancellor, but look, the university is for knowledge. You get it from research, from teaching, and it's dissemination of public sphere. And she looked at me, did that, and said, "You're working for the wrong university." So I haven't just given the definition of the university. I thought it was quite amusing. So yeah, but also, back to this, Joseph Boyce in 1972 stated, "I don't believe that the art school, which should stress new artistic concepts, should lay an emphasis on fixed places to work in the school. That simple thinking is tied up with the idea of art as a craft with a workbench and drawing table." That was Joseph Boyce in 1972. I don't necessarily agree, but it's but I do think this thing of studio culture and the degree-shaped exhibition are impediments. I don't say they shouldn't take place, but there does need to be a means of going outside of those conditions and use them as restrictions, which is what has always been happening. So then the news, after all that was over and the whole struggle to save the course and so on, it was the independent art school, which produced his publication things. And various other things started to go on, Art Festival, mentioned earlier, art zines, that is spying, there's illegal media, and various other things released. And in a way that goes into the past, like mute, performance, hybrid, live art listings and things like that, were much more kind of about the stuff than dealing with what the stuff was about. And now I was down 54 degrees north, that brought in all sorts of things. And then of course the closure of the course, went gallery stuffed, and that was the list of artists that exhibited in that space, crammed all that stuff into that space. And you'll find there's a number of former students, including Paul Noble, who I mentioned earlier, who said that, and friends of as well, like, they're all in that list. So there's also a number of Simon Stewart, myself, and others in here, used to meet regularly to see what can we do with the situation. We didn't really succeed in coming up with anything. And at the final degree show, at the end of it, Espen Jensen came up to me and Bruce and Billy, formerly Bob, said, "I've got this idea. Why don't we get a space and enable people to make art and show it?" So I knew all this, so Bruce and I both said, yeah, we can do that. It seemed obvious, isn't it? Just get space and get some money and people to do stuff. So we got to Hallam. So Rick Welton, who worked with Ultimate Startsman, long-standing history of Hull, putting things on and doing stuff way back, running bands in the 70s, 80s. He's quite skilled, but lazy model or living context. And he knew someone in the fruit market, because his dad, I think, was a fruiter, and knew can't remember sort of Nellis fruiters. And he had this empty warehouse, token warehouse, and said, okay, 50 quid a month? So he said, yes. He said, it's terrible state, awful state. It's rotting potatoes. The mezzanine floor was rotting, and there was holes falling through, pigeons were flying everywhere. And we thought, great, we'll do this. So anyway, Rick managed to get £27,000 out of Yorkshire forward. We also managed to get £5,000 out of Wycombe's. And then we got the project money from the Arts Council, and we got money. So that picture there is, this is when we started knocking things down on Hall Street. It doesn't look like that now on Hall Street, does it? But then we got involved in doing stuff. I mean, there was a problem at Hawthorne Start, so I resigned from Hawthorne Start. So did rather odd other artists at Hawthorne Start who on the committee resigned because there were problems with the then director, but also the Arts Council, which is sort of Yorkshire Arts, weren't happy with how things were run around. But at that point, there was conflict between staff and the director. The model, the cooperative model, wasn't being really accepted by the director or by some of the staff. Well, resignation happened because there was only so far to go with the appointment to enable someone's job contract to be terminated without it being unfair dismissal. And we gave him a choice about it, which he refused. And we then had this problem with the Arts Council saying they didn't agree with us, which is the point where I had no choice to resign from it. Of course, the whole thing went in the end after he had to leave in the end, but we had to go through all the processes because then they got a new person who actually had to be sacked because of, well, that was it, they'd already gone, there's no money. But it was, so somebody starts at that point, we're still running okay. We had very good relations with most of the staff, so we were collaborating with Hallam Starts. We were collaborating with Hong Film. We were collaborating with the City Arts Union on Humble Mouth. We continued with that. We did Light Night, which was we did a thing called Newlyn, Incandescent. It's mainly black. So incandescent, of course, an interesting thing if you're calling incandescent looking at right now is that incandescent lamps are now banned. You see, it's all digital lights with LEDs. But also electric incandescent as a metaphor is incandescent range, incandescent. So we were able to kind of combine really good collaboration with the college, with using George Street for seminar where we had guest speakers going. So we were linking academic things, film program, installations, performances, all within this topic, which all coincided with Light Night, which was a big thing across the whole Yorkshire. So we got money via the City Council from Light Night money. The Litfest, we also managed to, remember the screen, the big screen? We managed to access the big screen. And what's called John Wynne, and he'd done this piece of alerts, warning alert warnings. Some of them we had to not use because they went a bit too far. Like, you know, they really might be in nuclear war happening. But these signs. So that was with the Litfest, but we also tried to negotiate with the City Council to be able to, or whoever, run that screen. It wasn't easy, but it was a very pleasing thing to be able to do something with a big screen that usually just shows sport. We also kind of, our space, we made it as a kind of, we did a thing called meantime, between things, we let people use the space. And this is Joe Millett made this piece. We managed to blag the track out of the film department at University of Lincoln. So he's doing tracking across painting. So it's basically going so fast that it all blurs in the video. So it needed enough space and length to be able to do that. So the space worked quite well for that. Another thing, one other body, the architecture sector, we remember that one. Yeah, nice. They had these voltaic cells to generate electricity, which enabled the windmills to run. As we know, those little windmills didn't generate enough electricity to do anything. No, it didn't actually do that. But that was the joke going around, that the cells were to windmills go around. But the architect, I think Julian Dyson was the education person there after leaving Interdisciplinarity. And there was this scheme, I don't know who prompted it, across Yorkshire with I think 4 different architecture centres. I think there was some architecture body that the Tories abolished. It was about trying to put practice in architecture to do with health and sustainability, things like that. So these different centres got set up across the country to try and facilitate that, to facilitate education in architecture. So we had an idea of that, and so architects could be part of this to actually do something that was half decent. So there was this idea called small structures. No idea where it came from. And it's like that each body in Yorkshire, I think there was 4, but they wanted to kind of get 4 different organisations to make us build a space to facilitate conversation. That was the brief. And we got asked as Hallam to do one. And after a lot of thought, we came up with this. We worked with Phil Bennett in the sculpture department, and he made these giant megaphones. And we put on either side of the dual carriageway, which was next to the altar, quite close to the altar. This massive megaphone on either side, so as you could talk to someone across the dual carriageway. So that was our idea of a small structure to facilitate conversation. It was the only one like that. All the other ones were little buildings. We had to go to do a presentation at a symposium in Leeds about it. And yes, that was a little strange to say the least. Anyway, coming close to it, the Blair government, as I mentioned, Yorkshire Forward set up the Blair government to do with EU money and also to do with regeneration. And she also kind of put a lot of money into the Arts Council for projects. So Ancient North came about, the Baltic, big mega projects, arts projects, but also there are smaller ideas of regeneration and so on. So that for artists, this also brought in a kind of level of instrumentality to work. I think the Tories just cut and cut and cut. They didn't sort of interfere too much with what they were doing. They just didn't give you the means to do it. Whereas the Tories gave you the means to do it, that sort of, I mean, the Labour gave you the means to do it, that sort of interfered a bit.
That's like,
so it harks back to, sorry.
It reminded me of like riding a bicycle on the pavement when there was a Labour government. Always was I being stopped, like get off the bike, you know. But with the Tory government, it's like I can just ride in there. Live on the village.
This isn't in Hull, but funnily enough, this is the free collective. They did come to Hull and did a thing in the library, actually, with a comedian that had an act of the 40 microphone and did this
Norman Collier.
the microphone doesn't work.
Norman Collier.
That's it, Norman Collier, thank you. Yes, they did a piece with Norman Collier. But anyway, they did this piece. They also did a version of it at the Venice Biennale as well, because one of the canals. So yeah, which two former students are invited to Falmouth, and they're reasonably successful. Cipriani and Simon Hoddington. We were doing a kind of public conference called The Work of Art, and I invited them. And Simon did a great kind of talk, which he called Artists Destroy Communities. It's quite a title. And you say about Sarah, in this derelict area of the city, artists get hold of the building, start doing stuff in it, and the coffee shop opens, and people start going in, and then something else opens, this happens, rents go up, rent goes up, can't afford the building anymore, move to the next month, they're not doing it, and the same thing happens. And you go, now I think Humber Street. Anyway, so in Free Collective, they hit the nail on the head and started doing these big signs in various places in the public spaces. That's the end. So let's replant the apes. But that always reminded me of, well, not reminded me, but that always reminded me of the end of Planting the Apes at Kilmsey. And I'm going to end with a bit of writing. It's a quotation, a bit of my own writing. Claire Bishop, in a book called Artificial Hands, and she said that the ground of participatory art has shifted over the course of the 20th century. So the identity of participants has been reimagined at each historical moment, or juncture, as we say. From a crowd in the 1910s, to the masses in the 1920s, to the people in the 1960s, 70s, to the excluded in the 1980s, to community in the 1990s, to those volunteers whose participation is continuous with culture of reality television and social networking. That was the 2010s. And speculatively, to update that, to the identity of those participatory artists since 2010 may be the disillusioned, with activity moving more towards political, social, environmental practices, campaigns and protests. The connections between participatory and performance art are essentially those of presence and engagement, whether physical or cerebral. So I think that's
back to Paul's kind of crosses where he was talking about that some of the more than the sum of their parts.
Yes.
What is this more? And kind of like made me think about how all this activity that was happening, all these places, all these parts in Hull, but actually what came from that was more than just these building blocks.
it reminded me of something from Paul Collins. This is a person wrote in, I think this is probably Yorkshire Post or the other one. It was angry over Hull Art Lab closure, letter. It's quite a letter, but I thought, and because he's talking tomorrow, I thought it's quite so, yet another arts organisation has sunk beneath the choppy waters of Hull's cultural sea. This sinking has made a slightly bigger splash while getting on the front page of the advertiser rather than leaving no ripples on the waters as the usual case. The demise of many arts organisations in Hull over the years has left a list of names on the cultural map, like so many wrecks on the maritime chart. RMS Art Exchange is navigating the course, but is still to make port. The stately SS Ferrers Art Gallery is being carefully piloted after its encounter with the Audit Commission iceberg, which caused its last crew to abandon ship. So no rocking the boat there. And let's not forget the small but carefully crafted MV Red Gallery. Will she survive the crossing of Key West development? With the resurfacing Hull's Harvest art after so long at the bottom of the ocean, Hull Art Lab can now be added to the name of failures on Hull's cultural map. Will this draft cultural strategy provide a lightship to describe the future? Navigators in the arts, future navigators in the arts, or will architects in Hull be better off retraining the swimmers in 2012 years?
It was very strong. I will let We're going to take 2 minutes comfort break, and then we're going to come back and have a bit of discussion and take apart some of those things. So just you can have a stretch legs, have a coffee, and then we'll reconvene. floor. Any questions for Rob, or any points to be made about the intersecting of different organisations, different artists involved? And just to say that we'll be putting a link to Rob's article published by MDPI.
I don't know who they are. It's some publisher that's got a very dodgy business model. Because it's using the kind of the university research agency. So it's the university pays them to publish an article, but they do a lot of work to do peer review and all this stuff, but they really fine tooth comb stuff. It's not superficial, but I got invited to contribute. I discovered that the editor was Tim Brennan. Tim Brennan was a student many years ago. He's dean at Manchester Jack. He also, funnily enough, taught at Dartington. So these things interweave.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. It's kind of and I think one of the things about good arts education is it does empower you to make connections and kind of forge the links. So we have copies of these in the exhibition, and also I'll put a link on the YouTube page, and then read it yourself. Fascinating. So in our edition, we've got people who were here. We've got Dave, who was part of that scene. Rob even of 1980s performance, dance, literature, and there's like kind of a real sort of interconnectedness between all of those organisations and different art forms, which I know made it really exciting when I came here. I don't know whether they always were connected up here or something which you had to kind of go on.
I'm currently revising my Coles Edgy Arts essay for hopefully for future edition of Critical Fish. But I was very interested in that cross-Collinson thing that appeared in the paper, because that was kind of summarised almost exactly what I was writing about. But I'm going back to, they mentioned Rick Welton and the days of the Rick House and Genesis Peerage and Coombe Transmission and all that stuff which was going on in my first around now. So yeah, I'm certainly in the middle of looking at it askance again after the City of Culture publication.
Yeah, with that enough distance now to recognise some of those impacts of that on the city. I think what's interesting is that we've got people in the audience here as well who have benefited as artists from lots of those arts initiatives that were here, things like RED, but also then fed back into those organisations by giving other artists those opportunities, which is one of the really exciting things. Was that because it wasn't, you get educated here and then you can go, and if you really want to try and get some work there's a lot of overlapping volunteering opportunities, and that really led to more and more initiatives, gave that confidence for people to start things like how.
I think it's also interesting that current education, you have modules in professional practice, which isn't really the sort of thing. You know, and I think that one of the problems I've had sort of put in the paper is that it's much harder for anyone from a mature student with responsibilities, working class student, working class people, people from different cultural backgrounds, to get into art school is much harder than it was. because people are going straight from school into a college with qualifications, and without qualifications you can't get in. And there isn't a means for someone that doesn't have that background to do that. And we've the thing that was always good with Hallam is we got people from all sorts of different backgrounds. Brian Griffiths is one that springs to mind. He was a successful artist. He was in the British Art Show, stuff in the Tailings collection. He got in through what was called pool. It's like the first choice of fire, interviews not got in, the second choice not got in, the third choice not got in. You then have to see if there's any vacant spaces anywhere. And he got in through that route. On completing here, he works at prison, teaching art to prisoners. And at what point he achieved that success, I wasn't quite sure.
Well, he got to do a part-time course at Goldsmith.
That was it, yes. I did bump into him some years ago in Bethnal Green.
He teaches at the...
It was just the same.
He teaches at the Royal Academy now.
Yeah. So I think that I'm also I question the issues of social mobility. I'm more concerned with equality than social mobility, and that because it's like the American dream. It's a crap. And I think social mobility is a polite version of it. Really polite version of it.
It's going to say that where you are, your starting point isn't good enough, rather than that you should actually be given enough funding to live the life that
We say I think that education saying it isn't necessarily about broadly what the knowledge is looking but to make a step up in life. That is not what I see education is concerned with. I always have trouble with that. I don't feel well I would never get into all this stuff. If I was young now, because I was fortunate in that I was trained to be a surveyor and I was rubbish and terminated from training. Someone else said, "Why don't you go to art college?" I said, "Well, I can't draw. I don't have qualifications." He said, "Well, then go to the foundation course." So naive as I was, I strolled along to Croydon Art College, the nearest art college, and I gave me a place. And the luck that I had was Bruce McLean was my tutor. And so he was doing those kind of pose works for kids and things like that.
Nice style.
Yeah, nice style hadn't quite started. Nice style started at Maidstone the year before I went to Maidstone. Nice style was actually started by two Maidstone students. And the original thing, I'm diverging now, but Nice style was originally these two students who wanted to be the world's first pose band. So it was only going to go to rock concerts, it was just the style of appearance that was important. They didn't like any music. So music was music on the record. So one of them made a suit called a brick suit. It was all red, but it was just pockets audio. And the performance was he just stayed there, and one of the other person put bricks in the pockets. That was the act for one of the earliest days. No one had streamlined suits. You could go everything pretty quickly. It's all silver, and everything was pointy shoes, pointy gloves, pointy sort of streamlined. So you moved around very quickly on stage, the long stage. But that wasn't really a runner. And then Bruce McLean and Paul Richards got involved in that. And I became the digital efforts and become an art world, posing as artists. I referenced a thing in the paper about this essential as an antagonism by the press of performance work, and so that even to the extent that Nice Style invented their deep freeze at the banqueting suite, and that they were physically attacked by journalists. I was there, I was actually in it. But if I'd gone to some other place of where it was all this sort of time, and I had very little interest to do. If I needed to, I'd find someone who was good at it and liked it to do it for me. You must. Sorry, I'm waffling in the direction.
I think that energy that you talk about, that freedom to do what you wanted, to expand or to move between different departments of the college, as well as kind of not being pigeonholed maybe as, oh, you're this one kind of artist.
There was a bit of that. It's still. And I think also that freedom, it wasn't just when you had freedom, some of it was also in opposition to where people didn't have someone doing something. Therefore, that galvanised them to do it because it wasn't opposition. I think that is another factor. So when you have something that is all Irish universities, there isn't an edge to it. Sometimes you need other sorts of people that you don't get on with.
Actually, Hallam was interesting in the early 70s. The art school was in crisis, and it recently been completely dominated by a group called Art Language. Harold Harrell and Harry. And they really, everyone was terrified of picking up a paintbrush or a mallet. and it was just a very, nobody was teaching anything. It was kind of sort of, if you had learned it in sixth form at A level, you probably would have picked it up in foundations. So at degree level, you didn't really need much instruction. So for a couple of years, it was complete free-for-all, which was devastating for a lot of people. Worked for me because I came, rather like you, just sort of, I think I'll go to a local art college, but after 2 years, unsuccessful years in journalism, which put me off writing for quite a long time. But I was able to integrate music, film, all the things that I was personally interested in. And this was at the time before kind of combined arts, those sort of areas were opening up. And within 2 or 3 years they were. Courses were starting, combined arts courses were starting to sort of evolve in place, particularly Dartington places like that. So it was really strange free for all time in art education at that point. Didn't last.
How did that feel to you, Stuart, who has...
Well, I came much later. I came in 1988. At the same time that Mike Stubbs took over as director of full-time-based arts. I think I was really surprised by the amount of time-based work at home, because I've just been teaching art history at Chelsea, and the time-based area at Chelsea wasn't called time-based, it was just called Fairy Area. And film was just it was Anne Smog. She was a one-person film department who actually had some very good students. Chris Wellesley was one of her students. So I was very aware that people in Hallam were much more connected with, people at the college were much more connected with the city than I was certainly used to in Chelsea. And also there was this emphasis on the live art, the film, and he took me on sound work as well, which was all new to me, pretty much. I mean, I had a studio in London next to a video maker, Zoe Redmond, which is actually the main reason why I applied for the job in Hull. But my knowledge of this whole area of sound-based work was extreme. I mean, it was non-existent. I mean, I wanted to find out, but it was an amazing environment, and also, I mean, Rob's right. There were sort of members of staff who wanted to sort of draw lines around what was sculpture and what was painting. It didn't last very long. Well, maybe it did somewhere. But I think that within the general context of all, the general cultural isolation, I mean the physical, the geographical isolation of all, the sort of relative cultural isolation of all, you needed to have a comprehensive overall scene that could incorporate different people. There's a whole chapter in David Byrne's book, How Music Works, which is about, he's writing about the scene in New York from 1973, 1974, the music scene, and how Talking Heads got started and another band at that time, Richard Hallam. And he says the absolute prerequisite is to establish a scene. You know, you might be able to play instruments or anything, but you need to have a group of people who can get things going, and that existed. The ball was already rolling by 1988 through the formation of Untimed and Sharks. And like Rob said, there was the photography workshop. So there were things already set up. But Rob, you didn't mention the Roots Festivals.
The Root Festival?
Yeah.
I mentioned it.
I did mention it.
Yeah. Well, because we did a thing of ReRooted in 17, did a talk about multiple sites. So I wanted to kind of emphasise all the things all the other things. Because most people know about that, and I talked about the key things to do with the intercepting aspect of it, rather than the work that was done. Because that's another thing that would be never started.
Day in itself, this.
When we were talking 3 weeks ago, someone mentioned whether they thought things like the Root Festival had any connection to Hull getting the City of Culture in 2017. And I thought indirectly that there had been, that there was a connection between what Hull-Town was doing in the 80s and 90s, and it was a slow burning thing.
I think it influenced the whole 2007, was it? The
Freedom Festival.
Well before festival celebrations, and then the Freedom Festival. That's partly because you got people like Luther V. Howard, Red Guitars, and people who were connected as musicians who were playing at the Adelphi or started off playing at the place, and were also, as photographers and artists, were connected in with time-based, but also by then had got positions within the council, and I think that was one of the benefits. And we've talked as well about how Red was able to happen because we got Neil Edge on the council, who'd been through art school himself, and then yes, and was happy that experimental, that things he didn't understand necessarily, didn't know what was going to happen. Happy to have faith in that, and I think that was the culture that was still there with Hull Art Lab by the time those buildings were taken up. Whether or not there's been a change now. The value of property is more apparent perhaps to the people who own those buildings. Maybe it's more property developer than individual.
I think one of the irony of the collapse
collapse of our art lab was that within a year, the whole, the crunch came, and suddenly all of Humber Street was up for grabs, and everyone was kind of, well, you say, it started with a trickle of artists taking over sort of rooms at petrol rents and things, as you say, then a cafe opened, then social, it was previously space open. And I mean, all that really happened because of an economic collapse. And that was, I think, what excited City of Culture when they were looking. They found Humber Street, this hive of activity, and festivals, grassroots festivals springing up all over the place as well. And so it was an interesting time because it was as much influenced by the impending collapse of the economy.
I suppose one thing Hull still had was spaces for things to be able to happen, and there was that knowledge that the fruit market area had, I think, by then was being moved to purpose-built. It wasn't functional, so it offered up this great area, which there were plans for. Then, as I say, through economic decline, all of a sudden wasn't the money. But there was still that understanding that the arts could do something exciting there. So it's being held almost until that point when City of Culture came along and could then put that money in to help develop or to enable the development of Humber Street Gallery and everything else.
But the spaces still exist, like the space that you've just got on Carlisle Place. It's fantastic. It's incredible. And when it was the opening of Paul's show, Richard Miner, who shared a studio with Paul and lives in Nottingham, he came here and he said that there are spaces still in Hull that you can, a lot of space still in Hull that you can use a studio space, which there isn't in Nottingham.
It's quite difficult to get space in Hull. We had a big
Hull.
Yeah, we had a massive place, didn't we? Jay was there as well, Shirethorne House, and it was full of 40 artists, wasn't it? And it was amazing. It was like, it was literally an arts centre, and we put stuff on in there, and we had all these people with all different things. And it was like heaven almost. It was a shopping centre, it had carpet. It was just brilliant, it wasn't even cold in the winter. And there's some really fantastic stuff came out of there, and then we all got voted out, and now it's been almost burned and wrecked. Because the developers just, not really sure what went on, so I can't speculate, but we just got chucked out. We actually had a working group, people trying to find another space, and we couldn't really get anywhere, and it was a bit sad really, because it was really cheap. It was
cheap arts or something.
But there was no move. Were they asking you to pay more, or did they just?
No, they just asked us.
Then it was 30
Yeah, we got a month's notice, and that was it. I mean, it was James and Lynch was really
a charity that provides new art spaces to artists, so we always knew that we would do together. I think what it shows is that we really trying to find alternative spaces for artists, and quite a few of them still haven't found space. So Martin, I don't know whether you guys have found space. There's a lot of people that have a space that haven't found another space. So you would think, because when the notice came up, we thought, I'm sure we're going to find another space. We thought the council would support us because we kind of tried to, it got a bit of a reputation for itself for actually bringing different art forms together and anything things. It wasn't massive. What was it before? What kind of?
It was a
department store.
It was a department store. I think the point is, it was like a ready-made art centre there. It was literally there. And if you
and there's several floors.
I mean, if you with a bit of
it's just that there was no support.
It burned really brightly, really quickly, and then just literally vanished. So it's quite difficult to find anywhere that's suitable, unless I looked at space, and I wouldn't work to me because they probably caught something to do with asbestos, you know, and I was like, this is a good space, but no, you know, that's risky, you know.
It was always an environmental issue.
It was a massive environmental issue, yeah. So yeah, it's not easy to find. I mean, there are lots of spaces. There's loads and loads of spaces. Actually getting
One thing someone did here is fundraise, you know, cooperation hall. It's sort of like a political. I'm not sure how to describe it. There's loads of people that come to the city to try and get people to work together.
Full cooperation.
Cooperation hall, yeah. And they crowdfunded to buy the new plans, and I think they offered, you know, invited.
It's a lot easier, you'll find, to get people to put money into the idea of buying a pub collectively than it is to get them to buy studio space for artists.
It's like what Paul
And also, it's a minimum £100 stake. It's like you ask artists to put in £100, they're like, oh.
Well, we actually had, I mean, we put in some money this Sheffield Arts DJ could actually put everything we had into that pub because we had our meetings in there when we were trying to find a space. It seemed like, well, why not?
And I think it's maybe that idea that you need something like a pub or something that's going to appeal to the public can then accommodate the arts and maybe over time make it things a bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that when we had the Blue Lamp in Hull, that was a really exciting place because they had bands on, but also there were, that's like video started, so Jay Moe, we were working there, as I understand it, and doing promotions and things like that, DJ, and a band had pulled out, so knowing that there were artists, filmmakers at the art school, approached, can you fill this night? And because it was successful, that grew into Slack Video. But it's the fact that you've got a bar there, that there's a place for audiences to go, and even if they're not sure about whether they'll like the art or not, they're fairly sure they'll enjoy a drink. So it kind of really helps, and yeah, maybe that is the way to go, is that kind of like getting somewhere which has a model which makes money, you know, a bar does have a turnover.
I mean, that's what was a bit sad about Sheffield because we were on the very edge of breaking out our thought, personally speaking. You know, we were in there about a year, I think, and it was just about, if you'd left it alone, it would have been written something else, and there was nothing else in the country about it. And now it is literally a skeleton of a building. It's such a waste, really. I bet the cabin's
connected to ground gallery, but those need to have kept going just about.
Yeah.
I mean, I know,
I think they pay a peppercorn for that building. And again, that's sort of one of those models where they have the core people who are always connected to it, but other people come in, which was the model of Red as well. That I think that it was set up.
But they were all outside students, right? They came here as recent graduates, but they weren't.
But they were from here.
Yeah, were they?
Oh,
Yes, so Louis and Ella
There were a group of students
I
from
think
Hull,
yeah.
Yeah.
I think they've done their foundations, I think that they've gone away to Newcastle, and then came back here. So they brought that their energy back and wanted to carry on making it.
To go back to like a residence video of ones which I ran in the early 2000s and 2000s, they were strongly affected by the death of the art school, which Red Gallery had a rolling committee of, the idea I think was there were 5 committees, someone had been there 5 years, someone 4 years, someone 3 years, and a recent graduate would join and actually the deadlines to leave. So you were training people in how to run a gallery, and then 2004 the art school had died, and there weren't enough new students. There was a bit of a part-time course, and I ended up there for 12 years. And when the building eventually was to be knocked down. But like Slack Video as well, it slightly died because the internet got better, and we didn't foresee the fact that people would be able to watch video. YouTube didn't exist when we first set it up. But it was relying on an audience. We had like 150 people most nights, and it dropped off to sort of 15 people. And because again it was like running two projects with a pay you anything, they need to. It's sort of quite hard to survive when you're running two organisations for no money, and like when the audiences drop off to hardly any, you can't keep motivation for it. But it was originally, there were students who were having video work produced, art films and film and animation students, and it was just getting shown and marked by tutors. Maybe they'd show their mates or their mum and dad, but it was at least an audience. And we sort of started running we'd collect films from Hull-based filmmakers, and we would send them to international film festivals. And we would also take international works and show them in Hull. And it worked really well for 3 or 4 years, I think. But the sort of loss of the art school meant that the number of people making works locally and the number of people attending things disappeared. And you did have that sheer mass of people that were interested in creative stuff. There is still an art course, but there's kind of 6 or 7 students in each year. It's very small and controlled. And when we were there were 30 on fine art and 20 on animation and 20 on film and however many other courses. But there was enough people that even if only 1% of them went and found a derelict building and tried to set up an arts organisation, it would still happen.
I think it's the situation now to do with art education is that I'm not sure how much a bigger difference it would make, which is a fairly shocking thing to say. It's because I was experiencing out at Falmouth, it's just beginning to Falmouth, the problem. I think it was coupled to the issue of fees and all sorts of other things, but also certain aspects of how things have been undertaken within institutions, was that students would only do what was on the curriculum. The fact that there might be an event going on in the town, they didn't go to it. And I found that quite shocking, because the emphasis had shifted to getting the qualification and not to do with what they should be there for. and also a lot of something that I've realised some years ago in terms of interviewing students was to accept people that have got an attitude to do stuff, not whether they're very good at it.
I kind of like that. I really do like that. I mean, when I left my college course, no one's ever asked me for a qualification, ever. Yeah. And I just went out in the world and people were more interested in my attitude than how I just get on with stuff. Yeah. That was about the only thing, and I've been kind of okay at it. Yeah. But I think it's a bit, I like that. I think that's really cool.
Because I realise that those are the people that really, they work, they do things externally, and I first had an inkling of this idea, because some years ago, where getting students from Scarborough, and the work was always the same, really, really boring stuff. And then you get the odd student who did something different. So students do something different than what's accepted. I got this veteran complaint from the head of the course at Scarborough. Why are you rejecting our best students and yet accepting the troublemakers?
What's the best student now?
Well, they considered it the things and follow what they were told to do. That's what and they did it really well. So they're kind of the best students. And this is one of the things to do with this learning outcomes thing. You have something to test against. So you have to be really, really creative to work out what those things to be tested against are, to avoid the instrumentality of that process. And you see, the old system, there was enough stuff for there to be consensus of where there's different viewpoints to then reach some kind of agreement of what something was. I mean, I quite like to have mapping assessments at all. But, I mean, and we have to go a certain way of all things. But if you get consensus of a range of people that have different viewpoints, there will be a much fairer thing that's produced. There's another incident in Hallam of where this was when this modular system came in, and there's a regulation that said about marks is that marking is actual judgment, not computation. So you get an example, and you can just calculate and get marks. Wait, but this person's written work is really, really poor. They're practically not quite good, but the difference between the thinking that's in that work, not to do with how well it's written, the thinking that is, the stuff just looks like it. You don't really know what it is. You've got to have a better mark for both. And that's ruled out. Calculation works out this. And I said, well look, the regulation says a matter of judgment, not computation. Meeting took place to change the regulations.
Don't slip away. Thanks, it's been great.
Dave,
Great to see you again.
Thanks for the contribution.
Right, okay.
And you don't have to correct me too much.
No, I couldn't have. Anyway, thanks. It's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, with regards to students, I worked at university, and obviously when we set up this place and turned it into an exhibition space, but engaging students and making them come along to the event, it's almost impossible nowadays, even if it's relevant to their course, or even, it's really, really hard.
They are working 2 or 3 part-time jobs, though. It depends on the student. Students, they're working outside, so they don't have the time that we might have.
Yeah, it's changed.
I went to Jackson's in the first year.
You see, at Falmouth, lots of the students had cars. They come from private school. It was like an hour's to take the back. They weren't all like that, obviously. It was very, very different from my experience. Even Dartington. I mean, Dartington had a very peculiar mix of students. Also, being proximity to Totnes was extremely problematic. With students in Totnes. You can imagine moving from Hull down to there.
Sorry, then. Well, I just want to ask Rob actually, because I was remember about I couldn't remember what it's called, the phonic or the sonic art course. It was about sound, and it was one of the few that were in the country at the time. The only one. The phonic art, that was the only one in the country.
Yes, it was the first. The second was a year after, which is going strong, at London College of Communication, which I was on the validation for. But that whole institution is flourishing to do with sound.
Yes,
That was
really interesting to me. I've come from Leeds actually. I think they had film school and all that. Script writing, MA, they were doing those sorts. But when I came to Hull, it was very, it was just experimental. I thought nowhere else seemed to have that sort of thing.
It felt very much at the time like that you were encouraged to disrupt the medium you were working with, disrupt the high street if you were on the bridge by walking back or whatever. That it was okay to get in people's way, and also okay to do your work wrong, to kind of turn things on its head.
videos that Kerry went on to do. We took that idea and did a 1 minute video. In some ways, film, well, it went digital, but before it was actually quite tricky to do. We had 16mm and we developed it at the college as well, was developing. So I think, and Quinny's film, when he cut them up and put them back, I just thought that amount of, there were some people that put in that amount of work, you see what I mean, to produce something that was maybe not very long, but really intense, and I thought that was what the art school, because I came in 2002, so I've missed the heyday really, but I knew people like Sarah who do ceramics, so there was a lot of people that had lots of skills that seemed like they couldn't use their skills, so the people, retired ceramics tutors like Ray McGowan, who ended up doing steamed carver chairs in a big sculpture, and then someone built an aeroplane in the glider from a kit.
He gave a talk in Sheffield the week before last. Criss-crossed. It was criss-crossed.
Well, he made a model of the glider.
He actually flew it, the crutch.
He made when he was here at uni, he made a hovercraft. I think that was his first foray into kind of modes of transport.
To escape from the university.
It's funny seeing him just 2 weeks ago. We talked about that very much. He emphasised that particular bit.
I don't know, we've got people in from Feral Art School, I don't know, who were also part of the art school at that time. I mean, the model that you're trying to do is to give people, it feels like it's giving people skills but with the freedom to move around between different departments and just being creative, I don't know.
And no accreditation.
And no accreditation.
We're trying to come up with a new model for assessing, well, getting people to self-assess, or where they want to start, where they go to, and what they come out with at the end. I haven't quite formulated this into a theoretical model yet, but
It's terrific. It's really trying to do. And I think the other approaches is what's necessary now, actually, because I think that the so-called state system is virtually privatised, is failing.
Yeah.
It's definitely failing. And it's not failing because of teaching at all. You know, it's not that's what it's failing, it's the structure and where students are coming from. You know, it's almost getting back into that kind of image thing in schooling, you know. It's getting to that point where people through the education system have been so kind of controlled and fear, terrorised into the life that they're going into. And it's very obvious there's going to be mental health issues. You know, it doesn't take much intelligence to see what's going on. And, you know, even a bit out of contact with it, you know, I can see what's going on.
it's sort of a perfect storm really. It's to do with, I suppose, the students who are in university now work through COVID things, so they actually weren't used to working, they were used to working in isolation. And I think that's probably therefore difficult when you go to university, particularly for art courses, to do that thing we were talking about earlier, of working in groups, of actually making your voice heard, and even whether you know what you think. And it probably goes back, when Dion teaches in school, probably goes back to the way employability is being brought into the curriculum at a very early age, so that you're focusing on getting a job. And Jen and I went to a meeting in Leeds a couple of weeks ago with people from the art schools in Leeds, so 3 different universities, who were despairing of the fact that, as we were saying earlier, students don't do anything outside what they have to do. And in fact, they seem so sort of worried about the future that there's perhaps in every cohort one that might want to be an artist and the rest of them are more interested in art history or other areas of art, so we're not aware of all the jobs that are available. And we were sort of, we were lucky in some ways in Hull because we were all thrown out of the art school at the same time. So that was a unique situation. Probably won't be unique, but at that particular time in 2018 that was quite unique. And the management then, which was an FE, they had an FE mentality, said that we were too old and the courses that we, which is probably true, the courses that we were running, students didn't want us anymore, just wanted little bits and pieces that they could sort of look into, but good for us because we were able to do something that sort of freed us from all of that and actually allowed you to experiment and see if there are other ways of doing things. But noticeably over the last year in terms of our contacts in other alternative art schools and with people in universities, there's a really rapid decline in confidence, great concern about what's happening, to the point where you begin to feel there's actually a digital revolution happening. It's difficult because it means people's jobs mostly, but the concern is such that it seems to be working more towards a consensus rather than things happening here and there.
I'm going to be coming back to the sort of within artist legacy, but then also the DIY future of what are the things that we've learned by these kind of interflowing, intersecting arts organisations and situations, but also looking at education and picking apart from different stages, different eras of education. What are the good bits and where do we want to be going and what else do students and the rest of us need from the city? So we're looking forward to those conversations as well, because it is a real kind of exciting thing that you're bringing in, and that kind of places like Absolutely Coached and Wonder Street Gallery and others in the area are kind of different ways of being able to encounter arts now. And it's always, I think, some things have gone but other things have come in, but it's how do we make that, how do we recognise and support that free-flowing of ideas and artists and different disciplines.
Just, yeah, I keep thinking because, I mean, it's beautiful to hear everything that's gone on, and obviously it is such a difficult time at the moment, but isn't at the heart of it all just the, the funding, that there's just no funding in the arts, and it is hard to get spaces for artists, and I've been reading quite a bit about what enables thriving art spaces, and I think if artists don't have space to just create, that's already kind of one big problem. If people don't have access into the arts or kind of don't feel encouraged to do the arts, and the arts have become so constricted. And that's another thing, even if you get funding, it's a straight jacket, isn't it? It's not a kind of an opportunity, it's more, you have to comply with so many regulations and outcomes, and as you say, it's so kind of against the creative process of the art to kind of know, a year in advance what are you going to deliver and how you're going to deliver it, and it's just kind of that creative free space. I feel that's just been squeezed out completely, and I don't know how we can actually generate and create those creative spaces where people are just free to create, it's, I don't know, and I'm not sure where it feels so much like that's at the heart of it all, and hopefully, like my husband often says, it might be different when the Labour Party comes in. Hope.
Hope is a great driver of
So,
creativity.
but I just think it's a really, really hard time at the moment, and hats off to everybody who hangs in there, creates, and you guys are a perfect example. Harry's brilliant, as much you do is amazing, very, very little. So, but I think it's often that as well, it's kind of that expectation of people that that's what artists do. Artists just kind of work and for free and make things happen, and I think that needs to change as well, and often we as a gallery who receives funding, we really try and pay and remunerate fairly, just to kind of set that standard in a way it's hard. That's how my Steve comes to work is put in, you know, and that incredible hours of work, you know, and it's just kind of really hard, I find.
Yeah.
To do this.
And we've spoken, Jane, about how when Red was set up, it was funded by the dole. And there was money available that you could sort of work it so that you were gaining professional practice. You could, but you had some money, and there wasn't that pressure to do 35 hours of job.
I think that's really significant.
It really is.
I mean, I moved to London a long time ago, and I was involved in the music scene down there. And the amount of bands that broke through and got big because they were on the door, and they had the time. They weren't sitting around doing nothing, they were rehearsing with a small amount of money they got, but they know they were going to get it. They weren't going to stand, and they got the rent paid. And now a lot of those people have got a lot more money back, I can tell you that. This idea that is now prevalent in the political world, that you've got to, I don't know, it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. You know, I would like to, when you mentioned about, you know, you've got to, if you want some money, you've got to tell people exactly what you're going to do, what the outcome is, all that. You don't know what the outcome's going to be. You know, you don't, if you're going to figure this out, you don't know what song you're going to write in. You're just going to do something, it's going to be good. If it isn't going to be good, you're probably not going to do it, and you're not going to be in that area. Hopefully soon there will be hope, and there will be space for joy again, because that really helps, you know. And it makes people cooperate, and then bang.
So I think when we were younger, we got art in school as well. We got art, music, and all sorts of things. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but there was other places you could get art education, you know, apart from going for 3 years to do an art degree. I mean, I did a photography degree, not an arts degree in the, and my mother would not have allowed me to go to art school, even when we got full grants, actually, because it was like, well, what are you doing, how are you going to make money? And I think it's becoming more of a class than anything, actually. It's like, if you can't afford to go, and you can't afford to buy your own materials, then buy a £1,000 camera, or whatever, you know. And that's what students were starting to do when I was there. They were buying their own equipment because we couldn't keep up with them. We'd buy one example of a new recorder or something because we didn't have the budget. But at least we had some, you know, so it was like, you know, Neil McConaughey, because I was working with TV and film a lot, you know, just have to sort of, and we did encourage the students. So once students were looking at buying their own equipment, then finding them good deals. So like Alison Field, who used to do work in the school, she got them to buy a whole load of 5Ds at a really reduced price. And that's the sort of thing you have to do if you're a technician. You have to sort of find these deals and work with comfort. I mean, one thing I was going to say about Jane Jones's work is I found that there's a connection with Hull, because it's the Hammerite paint you used to use, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Humbrol, yeah. And that was a whole company, and I like the way that Hull, because I was living in Leeds, I have lived in London, but Hull used itself as a, you know, so everything was very Hull-based, and also interacting with the business, because Hull as a port is very much a business place, really. Much more so than, well, it's not so apparent in Leeds, you've got more community groups, so to speak, or groups that are more alternative. But I found recently where a lot of the art classes are happening now is either the Ferrell, where you can go if you're unemployed and haven't got to pay exorbitant fees, or adult education, and that's had to be fought for as well. So, you know, when we were at the college, there was this big fight, I think sometimes between FE and HE, and that was a mentality, you know, like, because the FE people are more focused on vocational, so they wanted to add bits of art onto that, you know, some of their vocational courses. And now art is considered mental health, you know, it's like you do art for mental health. It's like, you know, as soon as you say something,
doing art was therapeutic.
well, something gets jumped on and then it becomes a commodity. commodity, so it's almost art to become a commodity to be sold in the special needs market.
Commodity or therapy.
Yeah, the therapy
I
market.
don't really understand true art, I like your sentence that I'm not going to get it right. Is it art is, and my question is answer. That's really good, yeah. You know, yeah.
Does anyone else have a comment or a question for Rob at this point? We'll still be around a little while, just close the more formal element. But if anyone has anything they'd like to say before Rob.
I'd like to say thank you, Rob, for the work and the space that you facilitate at the art college. It was an idea into your until the fine art course. Nobody was really interested in me developing my ideas or how I thought. I kind of felt like going through the school system and even at the foundation course in Belfast at the university there. It was very much like jump through this hook, jump through that hook, and jump through this hook, and really it was only when I got to Hull Uni and the tutors there were interested in me developing what I was thinking about, and that's what I loved about the course, the freedom that was given to things, the kind of the non-teaching, very, very valuable, and kind of like a lifelong gift, really.
I'd like to go back to that college.
The one back then, though.
Probably. Yeah.
Well, I think that was a really great point to bring this to a close. I think we've all benefited in this room from Rob's teaching and the ethos of the art school at that time and what it's helped us to develop or be part of or be witness to in this area and clearly beyond. The shoots have gone much further afield. So yeah, thank you so much for coming and responding to the show and bringing us to Southern World. Look forward to seeing you all again very soon. But thank you, Rob.